Hey everybody, and welcome to the D&D podcast. Today, I'm going to talk about my personal favorite class, the Druid. Now, this is a very strange class to have a personal favorite. A lot of people like the fighter if they like combat, they like the wizard if they cast spells, they like the paladin if they want a hybrid, they want the cleric for the power, the monk for how unique it is, but no one really goes towards Druid. My story with the Druid is it was the first spellcaster I ever played, the second character I ever made, and after playing it for about an hour or two, I realized that this was my favorite class. Of course, I branched out. I did end up playing Sorcerer, I've played Wizard, I haven't actually played Warlock yet, but that's on the list. I've played Paladin, and I've played that subclass of Monk where you gain spells. But to me, there is no spellcaster better than the Druid. Because let me start off by saying, at a low-level Druid, it's hard to have a good build for a low-level Druid. I'm talking level 1 and 2, especially. Because the Wizard and the Warlock, they have better spells than you at that level. The Sorcerer even does, I believe. And there's really not too much overall you can do, and if you run out of first level spells, you usually end up having to fight with, say, a quarterstaff, which is what I always had with me. And Druid is not meant for combat. They're pretty much as durable as the Wizard, only probably a little less durable because they can't touch metal. It's weird. I don't know if it was either the half-elf class I usually choose to play Druid with, or if it's the Druid itself, but one cannot touch metal, period, or they lose their abilities. I believe it's the Druid class itself, though. But as you go along, and you get second-level spells, you get Moonbeam, you get stuff along the lines like that. And all of a sudden, you get a massive power boost. Because, for example, Moonbeam does 2d10 damage, which is more than the Fighter and the Barbarian are going to do at, I believe, 3rd level. And all of a sudden, you become the powerhouse of the group. And let's just say you take Hold Person and Moonbeam. All of a sudden, you're a force to be reckoned with. You continue to level up and when you get 3rd level spells, you get my personal favorite spell, Erupting Earth. I know most people prefer Fireball because it does more damage, but Erupting Earth always has a special part in my heart because of nostalgia. Mainly because the first time I ever played Druid, I had a Paladin and a Fighter in the party with me, and we go into a graveyard. The Paladin detects good and evil, and he's able to pinpoint that there are about 4 skeletons underground about 20 feet this way, fairly close to each other. The Paladin tells us that, and we figure they're waiting to surprise us and with a surprise attack. So I immediately cast Erupting Earth, and I kill 3 out of 4 of them immediately. One got a critical success on the saving throw, and they were fine, but the rest of the group took him down pretty easily. And ever since then, and that's not the only actual instance that Erupting Earth really helped me. When I was a player in Waterdeep Dragon Heist, my game had a subplot for us where there were 2 orcs running through the city. Actually, no, there were 3 because, originally there were 3 orcs. We approached them, and at first we had them in an alleyway. We kind of have them cornered. And one of the players, we had a bard, we had the druid, and we had the fighter. The bard suggested maybe we can intimidate them and we can avoid a fight altogether. So, in order to do this, the bard and we were going to cast basically illusionary just illusionary magic in order to give them a sense of fear, while the fire just steps in front of the alley with all these effects around him. And they think that if this works, we could just avoid the fight altogether and they'll just be intimidated. We do this, the fire steps out, there's roaring thunder, there's flashing lights, it's as if almost a godlike presence has just appeared. They roll their intimidation checks, and they critically succeed. They are not even fazed by this, and they immediately charge at the fire. We roll initiative, and actually, I got to go first. I immediately cast Erupt Earth, and because this alley was so thin, a portion of some of the buildings on each side collapsed in on the orcs themselves, instantly killing one and damaging one to where it fell to exactly 0 hit points. Then there was just one left, and it was very clear at some point that the DM, for plot purposes, was keeping him up because the fire got some critical hits, and because of my spells and the bard inspiring us, we had done well over 150 damage, and we were only level 3, we were level 5? I believe we were only level 5. And in about 3 turns, we did about 150 damage to this one guy. So at some point, we just kind of gave up, and it's like, well, he has plot armor, so let's see where this goes. But that's just one instance of Erupting Earth being helpful. As you continue on in your druid, you eventually get some very good abilities. I believe at some point you just stop aging, and it says basically you age like a tree, where every 10 years is equivalent to 1 year for you. It's not immortality, but it's basically multiplying the rest of your lifespan by 10, which is a whole lot. Especially if you're saying elf, then that's basically immortality. Well, it's not immortality, you'll still die, but it might be in 10,000 years. I believe elves could live up to 1,000, 2,000 years. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's if I'm remembering correctly. And also, I haven't even mentioned the key feature of why most people choose Druid. Wild Shape. Wild Shape was always more just the frosting on top of the cake for me, but a lot of people go to Druid just for this feature. What Wild Shape is, you can turn into animals, and that's about it. But no, it's actually a lot cooler than that, and also a lot more complicated, because you can only turn into animals that you have seen before, although, technically you could just say, I've read a book and I've seen every animal that there is. But depending on your level, there are certain animals you can't turn into. I believe once you get the ability, you can only turn into animals that are challenge rating 1/4 and below. And then, as you level up, you can turn into animals that are challenge rating of 1/2 and below, and so on and so forth. It's not really worth turning to Wild Shape for combat purposes, but I personally always use it for stealth purposes. For example, I would usually turn into a spider and then just crawl into the manor we're trying to infiltrate. And also, once you get the ability, you cannot be any creature that can swim or fly. There are a lot of restrictions at the beginning, but then you level up and then all of a sudden you can turn into fish, and then you can turn into birds later on. But I believe it's around the level 20 ability where you can actually cast spells in your animal form. Because once you turn to your animal form, all of your items are essentially absorbed into your body, and you cannot cast spells. It's the equivalent of it's the equivalent of polymorph, where you retain your mind, but your entire body has changed, and you cannot use the abilities that your body used to have. Polymorph, by the way, is another great spell for the Druid class. I'm Not sure if I'm sure other classes have access to it, or at least some subclasses of other classes gain access to it. But I know for sure the Druid gets that because, well, it makes the most sense. Because their whole shtick is animals and nature. Yeah, Druids, they are really big with nature. I wouldn't say they're the guardians of nature. They're more like embodiments of nature itself. Like they're not trying to protect the trees from fire. It's like they're one with the trees. Like how the Lorax speaks for the trees. That's the equivalent of druids. That's really a terrible image because they're a lot more powerful than that. Because instead of just sitting by and watching stuff happen, they can cast erupting earth and moonbeams to stop stuff. But as druids get stronger and stronger, they get some pretty cool abilities. A lot involve wild shape, like you can wild shape more often. There are less restrictions on it. At around level 20, you can outcast spells. And they do get some class-specific spells, like I know Moonbeam is one that only druids can learn. It's a great spell. Basically, a light comes from the sky. It's about 40 feet, a 40-foot radius circle, no, 20-foot radius circle, 40-foot diameter. Everything inside takes 2d10 damage, and anything that starts its turn in that circle takes an additional 2d10 damage if they fail to save again. And overall, it's my personal favorite class. If I'm sure I'm not doing it justice by explaining it, but I definitely love it. And if you have any questions or comments about it, be sure to let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. I hope you all have a great day. And until next time, roll well.